Wera, you've been very active and outspoken in the House on many subjects, but I want to talk to you today, if I may, about your thoughts and views regarding this city, the city you represent and the people that you represent in Parliament. You've recently been asking Bathonians for their views on priorities for Bath. Can I ask you what responses you're getting?
Well, the big priority of concerns is going to our bus services, and so we are definitely picking that up as the MP, but also as the council and councils. Buses are not run by the council. They have been deregulated, so it's private bus companies who can do their own thing. In fact, they have an obligation to run services at a profit. So it's a vicious cycle of deteriorating services because fewer and fewer people are using bus services. The bus companies need to make a profit, so the fares are going up, but at the same time services are becoming worse.
Now that's an issue I want to raise with you because I'm a citizen of Bath and I've got some thoughts for you. But before we get around to transport and roads, we're hearing that house prices in the city are soaring at the moment, obviously not helped by the number of wealthy Londoners who are downsizing to Bath, and I suppose a lack of real affordable housing. While behind that we've got the cost of living and fuel for heating and driving continuing to rise. What help or advice can you offer on that subject?
So you've been asking me what are priorities for people in Bath. Definitely the cost of living is hitting everybody, not just people in Bath. Indeed, house prices are not just unaffordable for many people in Bath, but across the country. So we are talking here about long-term structural problems, about the British economy and what has been set as big signals and direction by subsequent governments. But the fact that we don't have enough affordable housing, for me at the bottom of it, is that we do not have enough social housing. So housing that is actually run by public bodies, and then you can actually set the rent that you want, whereas affordable housing is ultimately just always the market price plus a bit of a discount. Now, if the market is going haywire for all sorts of reasons, and there's not enough housing because there's lots of people with second homes and there's a lot of people who are buying homes just to rent them out for Airbnb, if we just see a market failure, and if everything is being left to the market, and this has been the predominant ideology certainly of Tory governments, then the failures in the market has to be recognized and seen. And the government just simply doesn't. It keeps leaving everything to the market. Everything is being privatized. Nobody actually recognizes that for the public good, you need publicly run services. And that's at the bottom of the problem.
It was always my understanding when Mrs. Thatcher announced that people could buy their council homes, that the money was going to be spent on building new ones.
Well, indeed, and that hasn't happened. So I'm myself not against right to buy. I think it is one of the very few affordable ways for people to own their own homes, and if that's their dream, I'm the last person who thinks you shouldn't have people who own their own homes and they have deserved by living in a property for years and years and have looked after it, and then they finally are able to buy it. I think that is perfectly all right. I'm not against that as a principle, but the money, first of all, it's already discounted, so that's a problem, because with the money that the government gets for selling a house, it cannot buy a new home. So there's a problem here. So if the government wants to run it that way and allow people an affordable way of owning their own homes, then they have to subsidize the rest of the money that is missing in order to rebuild a home that is lost through right to buy. But the biggest problem is that the government isn't even using that money for building new social housing. It just goes into a general pot. And that's where the whole thing just collapses. We have lost hundreds of thousands of social housing, and that is a massive problem because we do not have enough for ordinary people, for people who need the support of social housing to live there. And increasingly, all we have in social housing is people with massive issues, including people who are drug dealing, people who actually have mental health problems and should have supported housing, and so on and so forth.
Student housing, the amount of student housing being built, and party houses are also playing their part, maybe in denying young Bathonians a foot on the ladder. Can you help there?
So again, I'm not a decision maker in government because I'm not in government, and I'm not a decision maker in the council because I'm not a member of the council. I'm an opposition MP who can raise these issues and campaign for change, and that's what I'm doing. I'm campaigning for change and point out at ways of addressing these things. So when it comes to student housing, this is very much a local planning matter. The council, the Lib-Dem Baines Council, or Lib-Dem run Baines Council, is actually trying to fight back against student housing. In the new updated local plan, what the council needed to demonstrate is that we have enough student housing, and therefore a developer coming in wanting to build more student housing in the future won't be able to do that. In the past, the local plan basically said we still need more student housing. So each planning application that in the last 5 years came past the planning committee, and if the planning committee said no, and they did, and a developer could go on appeal, and then the national planning inspector reinstated the application and permitted it. Therefore, we are going to have a few more applications that will go forward, and more student housing will be built. But if the national planning inspector is approving the local plan the way that Baines Council, run by the Lib-Dems, wants it to happen, then student housing will be a thing of the past. More student houses will be a thing of the past. They can't build anymore.
It's a shame in a way the universities can't be persuaded to build on campus.
Well, they have been persuaded. Again, universities have to, and I don't want to make this the fault of universities. The government has basically told every university in the country that they need to run as a business and make a profit. So it's not supported by public money. They have to run making their own money. How do they do that? By attracting students, and the more students they have, the better. But also, of course, they want to ultimately provide good education and good courses. So Bath University has used the land that they have to build more facilities for education. That in itself is not a bad thing. So they are restricted in the amount of student housing that they can actually build on site. But of course it is always about negotiating with the university and the council of are they going to limit student numbers at some point. The university has definitely committed to not increasing undergraduate courses, but the number of postgraduate students that are coming, as I understand it, are still not limited. And the university ultimately needs students in order to make their whole operation viable.
A vicious circle. We are in the middle of a climate emergency. We now have an energy crisis. Where do you think that local effort should be focused in trying to tackle both?
Indeed. People think that the climate emergency is something that is an unaffordable luxury. And yet we are seeing energy crisis exploding with the conventional way of heating our homes through gas and fossil fuels, which we should get rid of anyway. The two things actually go together. Tackling the climate emergency and keeping our energy costs low go together, because if only we had already all the renewables installation on board that are currently being planned, our energy bills would be a lot lower. The cheapest form of energy is actually renewable energy. The government could actually commit even more to renewable projects than they have currently done. For example, looking at tidal wave power again, energy bills will drop while we're actually becoming less and less dependent on fossil fuels.
You know, I can go back to my youth working on a local newspaper at Weston-super-Mare when they were talking about a channel barrage that never happened. Maybe now is the time to look at that again.
Indeed, and in fact the government is looking at nuclear power as a non-fossil fuel way of energy, but it's the most expensive form of energy. Why is the government not committed to renewable energy projects like tidal wave power?
We seem to be locally on a bit of a non-winner as far as the clean air zone is concerned. There's no indication that people will willingly give up using their cars. And without reducing public traffic on our roads, how can we ever have an efficient public transport service. This goes back to what you were saying about bus services being run for profit, and not enough people are using the buses, but maybe that's because there's not a good service, because the buses just can't get around the city.
Well, indeed, but let's just go back to air pollution and the clean air zone. Air pollution is a killer. Particularly young people are vulnerable. So we have a duty to make sure that young children don't suffer from air pollution, and indeed they carry that into adulthood. But let's just be clear here. The council was mandated by the government to clear up air pollution. We have got illegal levels of air pollution in Bath, so having to do something about it was something where the council simply did not have a choice. And to be quite honest, morally we don't have a choice. We cannot keep going with something that is killing people. So let's just see this as a bottom line. Air pollution is a killer. How do we entice people to look at alternatives to their car use? So first of all, the clean air zone, if you're a private car owner, you're not affected by the clean air zone anyway. So you know, there's often a lot of fake news out there about who's actually affected by it. But going back to long-term, trying to encourage people to look at alternatives to their own private vehicle. Yes, we need a good public transport system. And if we don't have that, I don't blame people when they say, well, what alternative do I have? I personally cycle, some people walk, but I can't expect that everybody does what I do and gets on their bike. You need to ultimately be a lifelong cyclist in order to maneuver dangerous traffic. And I would feel awful if I had encouraged somebody to get on their bike and they would be hurt. So cycling in Bath is definitely very difficult. I get that. So we need a good public transport system. Again, because a long time ago buses were deregulated and are now running by private bus companies. It's not the council who's running them. We are in a system where the market has completely failed.
The local authority is Lib-Dem controlled at present. I'm sure you often work in tandem with colleagues there. The ruling administration seems to be frequently wrapped in controversy. Things like the so-called Ring of Steel, they're being accused of being anti-car, giving away Bathampton Meadows in some people's view, the prolonged agonies of the Cleveland Bridge repairs, and even members crossing the floor with accusations of bullying and racism. Is this an embarrassment to you?
Well, politics is politics. So the people that you're quoting there is, of course, the political opposition, and they will, of course, like I am criticizing the current Tory government in Westminster. People from opposite political parties are going to attack and criticize the ruling administration. That's democracy. And it is ultimately around, are these accusations or these claims substantiated? Could the Lib-Dems do better? I personally believe actually that they're doing a jolly good job in a very difficult situation. Council budgets are very, very tight. And the council is, the Lib-Dem run council is really delivering against the odds. That we have now Bathampton Meadows being protected from being built over is a good thing. So that people are complaining about that, I'd say let them. But actually, if you're looking at all the arguments, it's a good thing. And we just have to get our messages out there and persuade people that what the Lib-Dem council is trying to achieve is difficult, but they're doing a lot of good things. For example, building more social housing, the first in a generation, 50 new social homes, but we're talking about the need for that. They're delivering that, that's difficult. They're delivering against the odds, model shifts in behavior for traveling and transport. These are difficult decisions. The Lib-Dems are facing them. A lot of previous councils have ducked them. I'm proud of what the Lib-Dems are achieving.
Not too many more, Wera. What's your view on the issue of the Cleveland Bridge and the way it's been handled? We're hearing in the latest reports that there's a real danger that the bridge can never be returned to the volume of traffic it was handling in the past. Wouldn't a proper survey in the first place have shown up these major issues? We just had men swinging on ropes.
So again, the issue is that this is an old bridge that cannot sustain the traffic that's currently, or that used to go over it until a year ago. So has the council and the Lib-Dems, even prior to taking control in 2019, when the Lib-Dems were running the council up to 2015, have they not said that? Have they not tried to put weight restrictions on it? And national government has refused the council to do that. So have we locally not rang the warning bells again and again? Yes, we have. So finally, the government allowed the council to actually spend money on the bridge, because that was money that the council didn't have. And the original surveys only showed a certain amount of damage, but as repair works, but also dismantling bits of the bridge have gone forward, which was part of the process. Don't blame the council for not discovering that early. It was discovered as building work and repair work was going on, and more damage is now being discovered. Should we not use this bridge? Absolutely. Am I not pushing for ultimately detrunking the route that goes through Bath, which is ridiculous? It shouldn't. So detrunking the A3646 is a long-term project. I think it has to happen ultimately, but an alternative has to be found. Is this politically difficult? Yes, it is, because the surrounding Tory-run MPs and Wiltshire Council don't necessarily want to take on the traffic that is currently going through this ridiculous route through Bath, and therefore it's going to be difficult. But Highways England is currently conducting a study, and I'm making sure, from my position, that we are putting a very strong case forward that Cleveland Bridge is no longer fit for the amount of heavy traffic that goes over it.
Does it ever go through your head that if you were a Tory MP in Bath, they'd listen to you a lot more?
Well, but that's not a reason. If I was a Tory MP, I would probably not fight so vigorously for changes. I would just sort of lie down and let the Tory government up in Westminster do their thing and not complain about it. I do. And I have raised in Parliament very vociferously my discontent about what is currently happening. A Tory MP would probably not do the same thing.
Good answer. You recently applauded the opening of the new police facility in Manvers Street, but some people are saying that's just window dressing. It doesn't address the bigger issue, which is getting additional bobbies on the beat in Bath.
I would like to set a record straight here. We wouldn't have a police station again in Bath if I hadn't campaigned for that. It was one of my big campaigns in 2018. We lost the police station. I won't go into the issues why we did, but we did. But listening particularly to police officers as well, who in the background were saying this doesn't work, but the people of Bath as well who wanted a police station back. We started a petition in 2018, and I'm pleased that in the end the Police and Crime Commissioner listened, the previous one, and in teamwork with the police and the council, we now have a police station back. It's not what it was before, it's different, but it is a police station, and I'm very proud. And I, if I may say, I want to blow my own trumpet here. Without me, it wouldn't have happened. So, do we need more police officers on the beat? Yes. It's about funding. The government has actually, under a lot of pressure from the opposition, now agreed to more funding. And I understand that we are going to see more bobbies on the beat, or our wonderful PCSOs, the community police officers who we have. We need face-to-face people who are dealing with our communities. We need that reassurance, that personal reassurance that the police is there and it is visible. And again, the police station that we have again in Manvers Street now is just a visible sign that the police is there to protect people.
I'm going to combine my last two questions to save your time, because I know it's precious to you. I wanted to talk about the recovering tourist industry in the city and how economically important that is. But I'm also hearing and seeing about staff shortages. There are staff wanted notices in restaurants everywhere, it would seem. I'm hearing some hotels are saying we can't completely reopen because of staffing issues. And I wanted to ask whether that was COVID or Brexit or what. But tying in with Bath's tourist economy future, should we also as a city perhaps be looking elsewhere as well as tourism for our future prosperity?
Let me take your second question first. Yes, absolutely. Diversifying our local economy is absolutely important and necessary. So there are lots of different ways of doing that. And that is basically working with the business community in Bath bit of how can we actually look at ways of attracting other forms of industry and business into the city. And we have a very good creative sector. So that, for example, digital creative sector is something where we in Bath could do better and more. You know, they're sort of things that my heart is particularly where I'm particularly interested in is, for example, developing industries that are around tackling the climate emergency. Those are they're new businesses, new opportunities for business in Bath, and together with the university, there are plenty of opportunities for us in Bath to become something that is more diverse than just focusing on tourism and heritage. And going back to what you said, staff shortages. Wherever you are politically, you know, you can blame it on COVID or Brexit. I personally, people will know that's no news. I thought Brexit was a historic mistake. So my personal view is that at the bottom of it is probably Brexit, but COVID also plays a part. No doubt, people who during the COVID pandemic moved away because they were European citizens, they are not coming back now. Would that have happened in the same way if there hadn't been COVID? Possibly not. But that people, European citizens particularly, actually find it so difficult now to work here in Britain, and actually vice versa. Young people find it increasingly difficult to find work in the European Union because we have separated ourselves from our biggest trading and economic partners. That both ways we have put barriers into the way, and that is restricting economic activity, no doubt about it.
Wera, are you looking for an electoral hat trick in 2024? Will you be back at the next election?
Well, I enjoy what I'm doing. I feel that I'm very privileged and honoured to represent Bath. It's been, you know, one of the best things in my life. I feel fit enough to keep going, and yes, absolutely, I'll stand again in whenever the next general election will come.
Wera Hobhouse, thank you.